You guys, I am not trying to jump the gun here by let alone saying that this Knicks vs Hawks playoff series in the 2021 NBA playoffs is the most entertaining series in this postseason. However, after watching the first two games of this series, I may even go as far to say that this has the potential to be one of the most entertaining series I have ever watched in my entire life. And if you are watching this video and you have not watched a single second of this series and you have no idea what I'm talking about, wow, do I feel sorry for you. But either way, I'm glad you're here because what we are going to be doing in today's video is, even though the series is tied 1-1 as I am making this and the Knicks are looking very solid going forward in the series, I am really going to be diving into what we have seen from an overall perspective from both the Knicks and the Hawks so far, and on top of this, give the biggest reason as to how I personally feel the New York Knicks are going to be able to make their way out of this series and into the second round. And believe me, in terms of this reason, we have not seen it to any extent throughout the first two games of this series. That's why I personally believe when it does kick into full effect, this series will be completely over. But as always, you guys know I am more than excited to get into another one of our videos here on the channel. But before we do, for any of you newcomers, I'm going to stop the video right now and give you 5 seconds to go down below and subscribe. Again, for any of you new guys here on the channel, believe me, you are not going to regret hitting this button, as we are coming out with brand new NBA content on a daily basis, covering almost any NBA topic you can possibly think of. So for any of you guys that do this for me, thank you so much. But let's get back into this video and back into our discussion about the New York Knicks. Now again, you guys, I cannot reiterate enough how much this series has left me speechless so far, as throughout the first two games, it seems like this series has 7 games written all over it, because I will personally take as much as I can in terms of watching these two teams battle it out on the court together. I literally could not take my eyes off of the TV for game 1 and game 2 completely. New York Knicks and Atlanta Hawks fans watching this video, you may have something different in mind in terms of how fast this series is going to end, but anywho, again, kind of circling back to the New York Knicks, you guys, I really feel like there is a standout point with this team that we have seen through games 1 and 2 that really cannot go unnoticed. And again, this is a major factor that if this switch can be flipped and a major turnaround in this area happens, I really see the end of this series being completely different from what we've seen in the first two games. And if you have not caught on to what I am trying to hint at, or you really haven't been paying attention throughout the first two games to the overall statistics at the end, it actually revolves around the performance that we have seen so far out of the Knicks' rising superstar, their overall leader, and the odds-on favorite to win the 2021 Most Improved Player of the Year award, and this is Julius Randle. And believe me, if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about with making this statement, I don't blame you one bit, as I feel like a lot of you guys watching this video can agree with what I'm about to say, but not just watching these two playoff games alone, more so every playoff game so far has been truly mesmerizing, which I do think a lot of this has to do with the fact that we have sold out crowds again, which does have an impact on even us watching the games at home, to the extent that we're not paying attention to the stuff that we should be or that we usually have been throughout the course of this season. Because again, if you would look at the beginning of this series from an outsider's perspective and see that the Knicks and Hawks split the series 1-1 in the first two games in New York with very heated battles back and forth the entire time, you would probably originally say something along the lines of, okay, the New York Knicks are showing up to play in the playoffs, we love to see this, splitting it 1-1 is not bad at all. But in fact, they are underperforming pretty substantially in terms of what they were able to do in the regular season, and I think it's safe to say as well that the New York Knicks should have took the first two games very easily. As when we actually take a look into Julius Randle's numbers throughout the first two games of this series, we can see that he put up 15 points in both game 1 and game 2, which again, you may think when looking at these numbers that it is fine, some other players stepped up in these games, it's no big deal that he only put up these kind of numbers, he may have been taking less shots than usual, but this is simply not the case, you guys, as Julius Randle shot in game 1 overall 6 for 23 from the field, which was then followed up with a 5 for 16 shooting performance in game 2, which, if you can't do the quick math, nets out to shooting 26% from the field overall in game 1, followed up by 31% in game 2. And don't get me wrong, you guys, when you pull up the overall major statistical averages for Julius Randle in these two games, you can say that he did have solid games, but they were not nearly up to the caliber that the Knicks have been seeing out of Julius Randle this entire year, which has then led to the success that they have seen throughout the course of this entire year as well. And this is ultimately the point I am trying to make, you guys, because as we have seen throughout the course of these two games, the Knicks barely lost to the Hawks in game 1, and in game 2, I would not say it was an easy win for the Knicks, but it was easier than the Hawks got on them. And to say that the first two games of this series were close while their superstar player was lacking profoundly in scoring for them in both of these games just really adds emphasis to the fact that if Julius Randle is able to show up and play up to his potential throughout the remainder remainder of this series. And I don't think this series will be as long as many people are expecting it to be. Also, I know this argument can probably be made in a lot of different situations and a lot of different playoff series that we are seeing right now, but I really do feel like it was just more obvious in the sense of watching this Knicks Hawks series than I have seen in anything else throughout the course of the playoffs. As I think most of you know as well as I do, that the up and coming story and the rise of the New York Knicks this year has been centered around this man, Julius Randle. And even with Julius Randle underperforming compared to the averages that we have seen through him this entire season, and to have the Knicks get out of the first 2 games of this series with a 1-1 tie is what I think a very thankful thing to have for you Knicks fans. I'll just leave it at that. But even with what we have seen out of Julius Randle so far, it has been really interesting and fun to see other players step up in these big playoff games for the New York Knicks, specifically in Alec Burks, who dropped 27 points in game 1, which was then followed up by a 26-point performance tonight in Derrick Rose. Like, you guys, I know this series is going to be a very good one. It might even be the most entertaining one we see in this playoffs, but if Julius Randle is able to jump back up to consistently putting up the averages that we've seen throughout the 2021 season in him, along with the rest of the New York Knicks roster doing what they have been doing throughout the first 2 games, I personally don't see a way that the New York Knicks lose this series in this case scenario. I could be wrong, don't flame me if I am, I'm just giving my opinion on the situation here. But speaking of opinion, you guys, I also really do want to hear what you all have to say about this situation and this series between the Hawks and Knicks in general. So first and foremost, you guys, I do want to know who you have making it out of this series and in how many games. And secondly, I'm also really curious to know if you guys think whether the Hawks or Knicks make it into the second round, if they stand a chance against the Philadelphia 76ers. But you guys, I've said it too many times already in this video, and I'm just going to say it again, that this series has lived up to the expectations and hype around it and then some. So I'm really just personally hoping that we can get as much out of this series as we possibly can. But before I sign off here real quick, I just want to say one more time, thank you to each and every one of you so much for watching. Again, if you are new, don't forget to go down below, leave a like on the video if you did enjoy, and subscribe. Coming out with brand new NBA videos on a daily basis, you guys. I got so much planned for this channel going forward. But once again, thank you, I love y'all, and I will see you guys in the next video.